Emma Kennedy had always been the light of her family, a girl whose laughter could fill even the grandest halls of her father's office and whose smile could warm anyone she met. As the daughter of a successful CEO, her life seemed perfect from the outside: beautiful home, loving family, and endless opportunities. But Emma never let these privileges define her. She was curious, independent, and full of dreams. She loved simple things too: reading books on the porch, watching the garden bloom, and riding her bicycle down the quiet streets of her neighborhood. Her days were often busy with piano lessons, school projects, and charity events, but she had a way of making everything feel joyful, even the smallest tasks. Friends adored her not for her wealth, but for her kindness, her sense of humor, and the way she made everyone feel seen. But life, Emma learned, could change in the blink of an eye. One rainy evening, when the sky was dark and clouds pressed heavily against the city, she set out to visit a friend who lived across town. She loved the rain, always had, finding the sound of drops on the windshield calming and peaceful. But this day, the rain had a different plan. A slick turn, a sudden swerve, and a moment that felt suspended in time. Everything Emma had taken for granted vanished in an instant. The car skidded, twisting violently, and when the world stopped spinning, Emma could no longer feel the familiar freedom of movement. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens, lights, and worried voices. When she woke in the hospital, the sterile smell and the white walls were suffocating. Doctors spoke in hushed tones, and each word felt heavier than the last. Emma listened as they explained the extent of her injuries: a spinal cord injury that left her paralyzed from the waist down. The words echoed in her mind like a cruel drum beat: never walk again. She stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the sentence, trying to imagine a life without running, without dancing, without the freedom she had always loved. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kennedy, were at her side, their faces pale with worry. They had spent their lives solving problems with money, influence, and connections, but this was beyond their control. They held her hands, whispered reassurances, and promised that she would be okay, but Emma could see the fear behind their words. Their confidence felt fragile, almost as fragile as her own hope. The first few days were the hardest. Emma could not move her legs. Even sitting upright required effort, and the simplest actions, turning over in bed, reaching for a glass of water, were impossible without assistance. She felt trapped in a body that no longer obeyed her commands, and the frustration, anger, and sorrow she had buried in small doses her whole life now erupted in waves. She screamed into pillows, cried until her eyes were red and swollen, and yet, the sadness would not leave. Nurses and therapists came and went, offering treatments, exercises, and words of encouragement, but Emma felt disconnected from everything. Her room, once a place of comfort, now felt like a cage. She looked out the window at the garden she had loved so much and felt a pang of longing for freedom she could no longer touch. Nights were even harder. The quiet of the hospital room, the distant hum of machines, and the soft whispers of night staff made her feel completely alone. She tried to sleep, but her mind raced with memories of her old life, running barefoot through grass, laughing with friends, and dreaming without limits. Now, each memory felt like a cruel reminder of what she had lost. Visitors came, family, friends, neighbors, even classmates, all with kind intentions, but Emma felt isolated. She could smile and nod, could utter words of thanks, but inside, a storm raged. Pride and frustration battled constantly. She did not want pity, yet every glance, every concerned word reminded her that her life had changed. For the first time, Emma understood the true weight of vulnerability. She realized that strength was not about achievements or wealth, or charm. It was about facing the darkness when everything familiar was stripped away. Days passed into weeks. Physical therapy sessions became routine, but progress was slow, painfully slow. Emma's arms grew stronger from lifting herself, but her legs remained unresponsive, stubbornly refusing to move. She learned the technical terms: paraplegia, rehabilitation, muscle atrophy, nerve damage, but these words meant little compared to the ache in her heart. She felt as if her body had betrayed her, and every glance in the mirror reminded her of a life she could no longer lead. There were moments of fleeting hope, flashes when she thought she might feel a tingle in her toes, or when small improvements in mobility gave her a sense of achievement. But the setbacks were always crueler, each one hammering the fragile optimism back into despair. Emma's relationships changed too. Friends who once ran alongside her on the playground now hesitated, unsure of how to act. Some drifted away, leaving her with the painful realization that even in times of need, people's presence was not guaranteed. Her parents tried to fill the gaps, showering her with care and attention, but Emma felt the subtle distance created by fear and uncertainty. She could see their concern, their constant vigilance, but she longed for independence, for someone to treat her as she had always been, capable, vibrant, and alive. Through it all, Emma's mind did not rest. She thought about her future with a sharp clarity that was almost painful. College, friends, dreams of travel and work all seemed distant now, almost impossible. She questioned what it meant to live when so many things were suddenly out of reach. She wrestled with anger at the world, with sorrow for herself, and with a quiet, simmering desire to find meaning even in her new reality. One rainy afternoon, as Emma sat by the window watching droplets race down the glass, she felt a flicker of something she had not felt since the accident: curiosity. Not about her old life, but about the world outside her room, about people, about the possibility that life might hold something new for her, something she had never imagined. It was a small feeling, easy to dismiss, but Emma clung to it. She did not yet know how or when, but she felt the first whisper of hope stirring in her heart, a fragile promise that perhaps life was not over, that perhaps she could find joy and purpose in ways she had never considered. That afternoon, she saw a figure working on a car outside her window, a young man in overalls, focused, calm, and diligent. He seemed ordinary, but something about the way he moved, careful yet confident, caught her attention. She could not have known it then, but this simple moment, this brief glimpse of a stranger working under the hood of a car, would become the first step in a journey that would change her life. A journey not defined by wealth or privilege, but by courage, trust, and the quiet power of human connection. Emma Kennedy, paralyzed and uncertain, would soon learn that hope could appear in the most unexpected forms, and that even in the darkest chapters, life could offer a chance for light to return. From the window of her hospital room, Emma Kennedy watched the young mechanic with curiosity that had quietly begun to bloom within her heart. His name, she would soon learn, was Michael Harris, a man who had grown up in the neighborhood, known for his honesty, his hard work, and the calm determination that seemed to surround him like a gentle aura. Emma's father had called him over to repair a small problem in the driveway, a leaking pipe, and that ordinary request became the beginning of something extraordinary. The first day Michael entered the Kennedy estate, Emma could not stop watching him. He carried himself with ease, yet with a quiet strength that seemed to demand respect. His hands, strong from work but careful, moved with precision as he assessed the pipe, tightened a bolt, and wiped the sweat from his brow. He did not notice her at first, and that was exactly what Emma needed. She wanted to see someone not drawn to her wealth, her family, or the fact that she was paralyzed. she wanted to see someone who saw the world as it was, and who approached it with honesty and purpose. After a few minutes, Michael glanced up, noticed her sitting by the window, and gave a friendly wave. Emma hesitated, unsure of whether to return it, but when she did, a small spark of connection flickered in her chest. That afternoon, she spoke to her father about him, and her curiosity turned into a quiet hope that perhaps the stranger could offer more than just his skills with tools. The next day, Michael returned not for work, but because he had remembered a part of the driveway that needed extra attention. Emma, in her wheelchair, was positioned by the window to watch, but this time she noticed the way he worked differently, as though he cared about doing things well, not just quickly. When their eyes met again, he smiled, a simple gesture, but one that carried warmth, patience, and a subtle kindness. That smile made Emma realize that she had been waiting for someone who could see her differently, not as a fragile girl trapped by her condition, but as a person capable of growth, resilience, and perhaps even joy. Over the coming weeks, Michael visited often. At first, it was for small jobs, fixing a squeaky door, adjusting a window latch, or repairing a broken chair. But gradually, their conversations grew longer and deeper. They talked about cars, about engines, about simple pleasures in life, and slowly Emma began to feel a connection she had not experienced since before her accident. Michael did not pity her. He did not speak in soft tones designed to make her feel comfortable in her fragility. Instead, he spoke to her as an equal, as someone whose mind and heart were fully present and engaged. That approach, simple as it seemed, became a lifeline for Emma. She started to share her thoughts and feelings, opening up about her fear, her frustration, and the overwhelming sense of loss that had consumed her since the accident. Michael listened without interruption, without judgment, simply absorbing her words and responding with understanding and gentle encouragement. One day, as he tightened a bolt on a garden gate, Emma asked, almost shyly, "Do you think people can really change their lives, even when everything seems impossible?" Michael paused, wiping his hands on a rag, and looked at her with steady eyes. "I don't know about everything, Emma," he said, "but I do know that we can always try. Life will always give us challenges, but it also gives us chances. Sometimes, the chance is just someone believing in you when you can't believe in yourself." Those words lingered in Emma's mind long after he left that afternoon. They were not promises of miracles, nor empty platitudes. They were simple, honest words that planted a seed of hope she had thought lost forever. As the days turned into weeks, Emma found herself anticipating Michael's visits. She looked forward to the sound of his voice, the sight of him working with focused energy, and the ease with which he made ordinary tasks feel meaningful. He did not rush her, and he never made her feel inadequate. Instead, he offered guidance, encouragement, and a sense of possibility. Emma began to notice subtle changes in herself. She felt more patient with her physical therapy, more determined to complete the exercises that once felt impossible, and more willing to challenge herself in small ways. The walls of her fear and despair, which had felt impenetrable, began to show cracks through which light could enter. One afternoon, Michael brought a small tool he had modified to help her with exercises at home. He showed her how to use it carefully, explaining each step with patience and attention. Emma tried, initially struggling and frustrated, but Michael's calm presence made the effort bearable. When she managed even a small movement, he cheered softly, making her feel proud rather than pitied. That moment, though simple, marked a turning point for Emma. She realized that recovery, whether physical or emotional, did not come in grand gestures but in countless small victories. Michael had unknowingly shown her that the path forward, though challenging, was not impossible. The bond between them grew naturally, built on trust, respect, and shared effort. Michael never forced conversation, never overstepped boundaries, but he had a way of being present that made Emma feel safe to explore her own strength and resilience. Through these visits, Emma began to rediscover a world outside her paralysis, a world filled with possibilities, challenges, and moments of beauty she had forgotten. She noticed the birds in the garden again, listened to the wind in the trees, and appreciated the quiet rhythm of life around her. She began to write in her journal, recording thoughts and feelings she had kept locked away. Each entry became a testament to the small, meaningful progress she was making. Her parents noticed the changes too. They saw Emma smile more, laugh again, and engage in conversation without the constant shadow of despair. They were relieved, grateful, but also cautious, knowing that healing was not linear and that setbacks could return at any moment. Yet, even they could not deny that Michael's presence had awakened something in their daughter that they could not reach alone. One rainy evening, as the sky poured over the city once more, Emma wheeled herself to the window and saw Michael leaving the estate. She felt a pang of longing but also a quiet gratitude. The rain reminded her of the night her life had changed, but now it also carried the possibility of renewal. She realized that just as rain nourished the garden, human connection could nourish the heart, even in the most unexpected ways. That night, Emma lay in bed thinking about everything she had learned in these weeks: patience, resilience, trust, and the power of hope. She understood that life would never be the same, but perhaps it could still be beautiful. The accident had taken much from her, but it had also given her the chance to see who truly cared, who could inspire courage, and who could help her find her own strength. Michael, the young mechanic with simple hands and a kind heart, had unknowingly become a beacon in her life. He had offered no miracles, no empty promises, only presence, guidance, and belief. And Emma, in turn, began to believe in herself again, not in her old life, not in the things she had lost, but in the person she could still become. In those quiet afternoons and rainy evenings, a new chapter began for Emma Kennedy, one in which hope was no longer an abstract idea but a living, breathing possibility. She could not yet walk, she could not yet run, but for the first time in months, she felt a sense of purpose stirring within her, a determination to face each day, each challenge, and each small victory with courage. The journey was far from over, but Emma now understood something crucial: sometimes, hope does not arrive in grand gestures or magical moments. Sometimes, it comes quietly, in the form of a person who sees your worth, believes in your strength, and walks alongside you, offering patience, encouragement, and unwavering support. And in Michael, Emma had found exactly that: a promise not of miracles, but of possibility. As the days turned into weeks, Emma Kennedy found herself anticipating Michael Harris's visits with a mix of excitement and quiet comfort. Each time he arrived at the Kennedy estate, he brought more than just tools or expertise. He brought patience, attention, and a steady presence that seemed to soothe the storm inside her heart. The simple act of watching him work, the care he put into every task, made her feel as though the world had not forgotten her, that life could still hold meaning even after her accident. Their conversations deepened with every meeting. Michael did not shy away from discussing difficult subjects, but he did so with sensitivity and respect, allowing Emma to speak freely about her fears, frustrations, and dreams. She spoke of the accident, the nights spent crying into her pillows, and the overwhelming sense of loss that sometimes paralyzed her more than her body ever could. He listened without interruption, without judgment, acknowledging her feelings and validating her experiences. There was a moment one afternoon when Emma, feeling unusually vulnerable, whispered, "I don't know if I can ever be like I was before. Maybe I'm just broken." Michael stopped what he was doing, wiped his hands, and knelt to be level with her in her wheelchair. "Emma," he said gently, "you're not broken. You've been hurt, yes, but being hurt doesn't make you weak. It doesn't take away your strength, your courage, or your ability to grow. You're learning a new way to live, and that takes more bravery than anything you did before." His words struck her like sunlight through a cloudy sky. For the first time, Emma considered that perhaps her life had not ended with the accident, that perhaps, despite the limitations imposed by her body, she could still find fulfillment, joy, and independence in new ways. Motivated by this newfound understanding, Emma began to approach her physical therapy differently. Where she had once gone through the motions mechanically, frustrated by slow progress, she now embraced each exercise as a challenge, an opportunity to reclaim control over her life. Michael, noticing her change in attitude, offered gentle guidance and encouragement. He designed small routines that allowed Emma to use her upper body strength creatively, teaching her exercises that she could practice safely at home. Each successful movement, however minor, became a celebration, a small victory against the despair that had once dominated her thoughts. Emma's parents observed these changes with amazement. They saw their daughter smile more often, laugh spontaneously, and talk with the renewed energy that had been missing since the accident. They began to understand that while wealth and comfort could provide support, true recovery, emotional and physical, depended on connection, trust, and belief. Michael's influence was subtle but profound. He never demanded progress, never offered empty promises, yet through his consistent presence, Emma learned to hope again. One day, while working on a car engine in the driveway, Michael noticed Emma watching from the window with an intensity he had grown accustomed to. He waved, and she waved back, but there was something different in her eyes, a spark that had not been there before. She realized she no longer waited passively for life to improve, she wanted to participate, to take action, and to challenge herself. That evening, Emma spoke to Michael about her dreams, about the life she wished to live despite her paralysis. She told him about wanting to travel, to attend college, to make her own decisions, and to feel independent again. Michael listened intently, offering suggestions and encouragement, but most importantly, he believed in her dreams, no matter how distant they seemed. "You can achieve more than you realize," he said quietly. "It may take time, patience, and effort, but you're capable. You just need to trust yourself as much as you trust others to help you." His words became a mantra for Emma. She repeated them in her mind during therapy sessions, when frustration threatened to overwhelm her, and in quiet moments alone when fear tried to creep back in. Each repetition strengthened her resolve, reinforcing the idea that progress was possible, and that hope was not a fragile, fleeting emotion but a living, growing force within her. Slowly, Emma began to experiment with small steps toward independence. She learned to maneuver her wheelchair with confidence, to adjust her position without help, and to complete daily tasks that once seemed impossible. Each success, no matter how small, filled her with a sense of empowerment she had not felt since before the accident. Michael celebrated each milestone with her, not with exaggerated praise, but with steady acknowledgement, giving her the courage to continue. Their bond deepened beyond friendship or mentorship. Emma found in Michael someone who understood her challenges, someone who believed in her when she doubted herself, and someone whose presence made her feel safe, supported, and valued. The trust between them grew, creating a foundation for Emma to explore her emotions freely. She spoke of loneliness, of moments when the pain felt unbearable, and Michael listened patiently, offering insights that were practical, gentle, and comforting. He reminded her that healing was not a linear process and that setbacks were part of growth, teaching her to approach each day with patience and self-compassion. One rainy afternoon, Emma attempted a difficult set of exercises with Michael's guidance. At first, her arms shook with effort, and tears welled in her eyes from frustration. But Michael's calm voice urged her to continue, reminding her of how far she had already come. Slowly, with determination and support, she completed the exercises, feeling a surge of pride and accomplishment. That evening, Emma reflected on her journey so far. She realized that while her body remained limited, her spirit had grown stronger than ever. She understood that courage was not the absence of fear but the willingness to face it, and that hope was cultivated through small, persistent actions and the belief that progress, however gradual, was meaningful. Emma's transformation extended beyond physical therapy. She began to engage more actively with her family, contributing to conversations, sharing her thoughts, and participating in decisions that affected her life. Her renewed energy brought joy to the Kennedy household, inspiring her parents and siblings alike. Emma also discovered a love for observing the natural world around her. The garden that had once been a mere backdrop now became a place of reflection and peace. She watched the flowers bloom, listened to the birds sing, and felt connected to life in a way she had forgotten. Michael, noticing her interest, suggested small projects to help her engage with the garden safely, and together they planted flowers, pruned shrubs, and tended the plants. These activities, simple as they were, gave Emma a sense of purpose and accomplishment beyond her physical limitations. One day, Michael made a quiet promise to her. "Emma," he said, "I can't promise miracles. I can't promise that every day will be easy. But I promise to be here, to help you find strength, and to support you as you discover what you are truly capable of." His words, delivered with sincerity and care, touched Emma deeply. She realized that hope was not about instant recovery or returning to the past, it was about believing in the possibility of growth, in the power of human connection, and in her own ability to rise despite challenges. That night, Emma lay in bed thinking about everything she had learned. She felt gratitude for the kindness, patience, and encouragement Michael had shown. She recognized that her journey was far from over, but she no longer felt trapped by despair. Instead, she felt a quiet determination, a belief that each day offered a chance to learn, grow, and reclaim parts of herself that she thought were lost forever. Emma Kennedy, once paralyzed by fear and sorrow, had begun to rediscover her strength. She understood that life would always present obstacles, but she now had the courage to face them, the hope to persevere, and the knowledge that she was not alone. With Michael by her side, she could envision a future filled with possibilities, small steps leading to larger victories, each one building upon the last, until hope became a constant presence in her heart. Emma Kennedy had come a long way since the accident, and with each passing day, she felt a quiet but determined sense of progress that filled her heart with both hope and pride. The days spent with Michael Harris had become the highlight of her weeks, not because of the tasks they completed together, but because of the encouragement, patience, and unwavering belief he offered her. His presence had shifted something deep within Emma. She was no longer just waiting for life to happen, she was taking small, deliberate steps toward reclaiming it. Physical therapy sessions, which had once been frustrating and discouraging, became opportunities for achievement. Michael designed exercises that challenged her, encouraged her, and allowed her to feel success even in tiny movements. One afternoon, he showed her a set of routines to strengthen her upper body, to practice balance, and to stretch her legs in ways that could eventually help her regain partial mobility. At first, the exercises were exhausting. Emma's arms shook, her muscles screamed in protest, and she often felt tears of frustration rise to her eyes. Yet Michael never rushed her, never criticized her, only reminded her gently that progress, no matter how small, was still progress. Each step, no matter how tiny, is a victory, he told her, and she began to believe it with all her heart. As the weeks passed, Emma's determination grew stronger. She started waking up with a purpose, looking forward to her sessions with Michael, and embracing the challenges that once seemed impossible. Her parents noticed a transformation as well. The quiet girl who had been withdrawn and somber after the accident now laughed more freely, engaged in conversations, and even offered suggestions during family discussions. Emma's renewed energy and optimism became infectious, filling the Kennedy household with warmth and hope. But even with progress, challenges remained. Some days, Emma would attempt a difficult movement only to fail, and the frustration threatened to undo the small victories she had accumulated. On those days, Michael's steady presence became a lifeline. He reminded her that setbacks were part of the journey, that patience and persistence mattered more than immediate success. His belief in her became a mirror for her own self-belief. Slowly, Emma began to trust herself, to see her strength even when it was hidden beneath fatigue or disappointment. Beyond physical therapy, Michael encouraged Emma to explore her world in new ways. Together, they planned small projects that allowed her to engage with life despite her limitations. They organized the garden, planted flowers, and even repaired old furniture, tasks that seemed ordinary but gave Emma a sense of purpose and accomplishment. She learned to take pride in her efforts, realizing that independence did not require perfection, only persistence. One memorable day, Michael helped Emma transfer from her wheelchair to a modified exercise device in the garage. The first attempt was shaky, she felt fear and uncertainty, but Michael's calm reassurance and guiding hands gave her courage. With effort and focus, she completed the exercise, feeling exhilaration, pride, and a rush of confidence that she had not experienced since before the accident. That evening, Emma reflected on the journey so far. She understood that recovery was not simply about regaining physical strength but also about rebuilding her spirit, cultivating hope, and learning to trust herself and others again. She realized that the accident, while devastating, had revealed a resilience within her that she had never known existed. The bond between Emma and Michael deepened with each shared moment. It was a bond built on trust, respect, and quiet support. Michael never overstepped, never pressured her, but his consistent presence and belief in her abilities became a source of strength she could rely on. He celebrated each victory with her, offered comfort during setbacks, and reminded her constantly that courage was about facing challenges, not avoiding them. With his guidance, Emma began to set personal goals beyond therapy. She dreamed of attending college, learning new skills, and experiencing life independently. The idea that she could pursue these dreams despite her paralysis became a driving force, motivating her to push further than she ever had. One afternoon, while tending the garden together, Emma realized how much her perspective had changed. Where she had once seen only limitations, she now saw possibilities. The flowers they planted, the shrubs they pruned, and the small projects they completed together symbolized growth and renewal not just in the garden, but within herself. Each act became a metaphor for the life she was rebuilding, patience, care, and consistent effort leading to visible results. Her parents, observing this transformation, felt a mixture of relief, pride, and awe. They understood that true healing required more than money, influence, or comfort. it required connection, trust, and the opportunity to rediscover inner strength. Michael had become an essential part of that process, guiding Emma with wisdom and empathy that no textbook or therapy manual could provide. Yet the journey was not without moments of doubt. Occasionally, Emma would feel waves of fear, questioning whether she could truly achieve independence, whether she could find joy in a world that now felt altered. On those days, Michael's words were simple but powerful: "Emma, progress is not a straight line. You may stumble, you may feel discouraged, but every effort matters. Keep going, and you will see what you are capable of." Slowly, Emma internalized these words, learning to face each day with patience, determination, and optimism. She realized that setbacks did not define her, her response to them did. With each passing week, Emma became more confident in her abilities. She practiced using adaptive tools to accomplish tasks, maneuvered her wheelchair with ease, and gradually strengthened her upper body and core muscles. Each new skill brought a sense of freedom, a reminder that though her path had changed, her life was still full of possibility. One rainy evening, similar to the night of her accident, Emma sat by the window watching the droplets slide down the glass. But this time, the rain did not evoke fear or despair. Instead, it reminded her of growth, renewal, and the promise of new beginnings. She thought of Michael and the patient guidance he had offered, realizing that hope often came not in grand gestures, but in consistent care, belief, and presence. Emma understood that her journey toward independence and self-discovery was ongoing, but for the first time since the accident, she felt excitement rather than dread. She could envision a future filled with small victories leading to larger ones, with challenges met not with fear, but with courage and resilience. Michael's promise, simple yet profound, echoed in her mind. He could not promise miracles, but he could help her find strength and hope within herself. That understanding became the cornerstone of her transformation. Emma Kennedy, once paralyzed by despair, now faced life with renewed determination, patience, and optimism. She had discovered that healing was not about returning to the past, but about embracing the present and building a future shaped by effort, courage, and connection. With Michael's guidance and her own unwavering determination, she was learning to navigate a world that had once seemed impossible, turning obstacles into opportunities and despair into hope. And as she looked out at the garden, feeling the rain, and reflecting on all she had accomplished, Emma realized that life, though unpredictable and challenging, could still be beautiful, meaningful, and full of promise. She understood that true strength came not from what she had lost, but from what she was discovering within herself each day, and that the journey of healing, though long and uncertain, was worth every effort, every tear, and every small triumph along the way. Months had passed since the accident, and Emma Kennedy had transformed in ways she had once thought impossible. Her body had grown stronger through physical therapy, her arms and core muscles firm from relentless effort, and her legs showing faint, promising movement she had never dared to imagine. But more importantly, her spirit had grown resilient, courageous, and filled with hope. Michael Harris had been by her side throughout this journey, not as a hero, but as a steady, unwavering presence who believed in her when she struggled to believe in herself. Each day, Emma had learned something new about her own strength, the ability to persevere, to adapt, and to embrace life despite challenges. On one bright morning, Michael arrived at the Kennedy estate carrying a small, portable exercise device he had modified for her use. The air was crisp, the garden alive with birds and flowers, and Emma felt a flutter of anticipation she had not experienced since before the accident. She wheeled herself outside, her parents watching from the veranda, their eyes reflecting pride, hope, and a quiet awe at the determination their daughter had shown. Michael greeted her with a warm smile, encouraging her gently as she prepared to attempt a series of exercises designed to strengthen her legs and balance. For the first time, Emma approached the task with a mix of courage and calm focus. Her movements were careful, deliberate, each one a test of her resolve. The first few attempts were shaky, her legs trembling and her body protesting, but she pressed on, driven by months of perseverance and Michael's steady encouragement. As the exercises continued, she felt a surge of exhilaration, a sense of progress that went beyond the physical. She realized that each small success, each tiny movement, was a victory over fear, doubt, and despair. Her heart swelled with pride as she accomplished motions she had once deemed impossible. Her parents, standing nearby, could hardly contain their emotion. Tears glistened in their eyes as they witnessed their daughter's courage, her determination, and the remarkable strength she had cultivated in both body and spirit. It was a moment of triumph, not just for Emma, but for everyone who had supported her, cheered for her, and never given up hope. Michael, noticing the subtle improvement, offered quiet words of encouragement. "See, Emma," he said gently. "Every effort counts. You've come so far, and you're capable of so much more than you ever imagined." Emma smiled, a radiant, unburdened smile that reflected months of struggle, growth, and determination. She felt a profound sense of gratitude for Michael's patience, guidance, and unwavering belief in her potential. In that moment, she understood that hope was not about miracles, it was about trust, effort, and the courage to keep moving forward even when the path seemed impossible. As the day progressed, Emma continued her exercises with increasing confidence. She practiced balancing, using adaptive devices, and engaging her legs in ways that had once seemed unimaginable. Each success fueled her determination, creating a positive cycle of progress, pride, and renewed motivation. She realized that independence was not just a physical achievement, but a state of mind, a belief in her own ability to navigate life despite limitations. Beyond therapy, Emma's world had grown richer and more meaningful. She engaged with her family more fully, shared her thoughts and ideas, and explored hobbies and interests she had once set aside. She wrote in her journal, capturing her journey, emotions, and reflections on growth, courage, and hope. She tended the garden, planned small projects, and even experimented with painting and creative expression, discovering that joy could flourish in the simplest of activities. Through all these experiences, Michael remained a constant presence, not overshadowing her achievements but celebrating them quietly, guiding her when necessary, and always offering belief over pity. Emma's relationship with him had grown into a deep, trusting bond, a connection founded on respect, support, and shared effort. It was a bond that reinforced her understanding of human kindness, empathy, and the power of connection in healing. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in warm shades of orange and pink, Emma sat in her wheelchair at the edge of the garden. Michael was beside her, gently encouraging her to use a support device to stand for the first time in months. She gripped the handles, focused on her balance, and felt a surge of determination. Her legs trembled, her muscles protested, but she stood standing tall, independent, and proud. The sense of accomplishment and exhilaration washed over her, and tears filled her eyes, not of sorrow, but of pure joy. She looked at Michael, who nodded with quiet pride, and then at her parents, who clapped and cheered with emotion. In that moment, Emma realized that the journey had never been about returning to exactly who she had been before. It was about discovering her own strength, embracing resilience, and learning that life's beauty could be found even after the darkest trials. Standing there, supported by her determination, her family's love, and Michael's steady belief, she felt a profound sense of hope, a hope that was rooted not in fantasy, but in reality, effort, and the human spirit. The weeks that followed were filled with similar triumphs, each step, each movement, each effort reinforcing her confidence and independence. Emma practiced daily, setting goals for herself, celebrating small victories, and gradually reclaiming parts of her life she had feared were lost. She explored new routines, attended events, and engaged with friends and family with renewed joy and energy. Michael continued to guide her gently, never pushing too hard, but always present to offer advice, support, and belief in her abilities. Emma's transformation inspired those around her. Her parents marveled at her courage and determination, understanding that true strength came not from wealth or privilege, but from perseverance, trust, and the nurturing of hope. Friends and neighbors noticed her resilience, drawn to the quiet power she exuded, a combination of hard work, courage, and gratitude for the support she had received. But the most important realization Emma had was that hope was not simply a feeling, it was an action, a daily choice to try, to persist, and to believe in herself even when challenges seemed daunting. Michael's promise, which had once seemed simple, now had profound meaning. He had said he could not promise miracles, but he could help her find strength. In doing so, he had shown her the path to rediscovering her own power, courage, and independence. Emma understood that miracles were not required when consistent effort, belief, and support could create extraordinary change. One quiet evening, Emma reflected on her journey from the moment of the accident to this point. She remembered the fear, despair, and isolation she had felt, and compared it to the hope, courage, and determination that now filled her days. She realized that the accident, though devastating, had given her the opportunity to discover an inner strength she had never known. She had learned patience, resilience, and the importance of human connection. She had learned that support from others, combined with belief in oneself, could create transformative change. As Emma looked at Michael and her parents, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she no longer feared them. She had learned that every effort mattered, every step counted, and that hope was not a fragile, fleeting thing, it was a living force that could grow stronger with determination, patience, and trust. Emma Kennedy, once paralyzed by despair, now faced the future with confidence, courage, and an unwavering belief in herself. She had reclaimed her independence, rediscovered joy, and embraced the promise of life with an open heart. Standing tall with Michael's support and her family's love, she understood that life's beauty could emerge from the most difficult trials, that hope could be found even in darkness, and that the human spirit, when nurtured with care and belief, was capable of extraordinary strength. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the garden, Emma smiled, feeling a sense of completeness, fulfillment, and quiet triumph, a reminder that hope, perseverance, and human connection could transform even the most challenging circumstances into a story of courage, resilience, and enduring light.